Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, the thing that frustrates me, not because I'm pro-Russian or whatever, it's that, my assessment was that it would be very difficult for Ukraine to absorb this equipment, this material. The 155 howitzers are already operating against Russia. I mean, they're in Ukraine. They're operating. They're having effect in the Kharkov region. Not all 90 of them, but they have several batteries worth in play. How did this happen? And this is one of the reasons why I've radically changed my my overall assessment, because I had been operating under the assumption that Russia would be able to interdict the vast majority of this equipment. Russia has shown itself unable or unwilling to do this. And as a result, the Ukrainians are having meaningful impact on the battlefield, not in the areas of main contention in the Donbass, but on the periphery. For instance, this is one of the reasons why Russia has carried out tactical withdrawals north of Kharkov, because in order to match, Ukraine's putting its best capabilities there. In order to match that best capability, Russia would have to divert resources from its main effort. Russia has opted not to do so, so they're trading, land, redefining the battlefield, realigning it, using natural terrain features such as rivers to block the Ukrainians. But this is a transformative moment in the war, because what it means is that demilitarization is not taking place. That for all the forces that Russia's destroying in the east, Ukraine is rebuilding significant capability. And I liken this to Moscow in October, November, December of 1941, where the Germans are driving, they're moving towards Moscow, and the Russians just start throwing things at them, sacrificing everything to slow the Germans down until, General Winter and the combination of Siberian divisions came in that gave them the ability to counterattack. The Germans were bled white, and they were stopped and pushed back. If Russia doesn't change the calculation that's going on right now, that is the trajectory we're heading on, because 200,000 troops, no matter how good they are and well equipped they are only capable of doing so much. And the fighting that's taking place right now, even though it's slaughtering Ukrainians, it ain't cost free to the Russians. They're losing equipment. They're losing men. They're losing materiel. And unless Putin mobilizes or transfers forces in, those aren't being replaced. So instead of having 200,000 men online, Russia today might have 180,000. And if you don't think removing 20,000 people from that equation changes the options available to the Russian leadership, you don't know anything about war. So I believe Russia is going to win in the East. I believe they're grinding the Ukrainians down as we speak. They're slaughtering them. It's the amount of death and destruction being dealt to the Ukrainians is unimaginable. But I believe the Ukrainians are willing to take these losses in order to buy time so that they can reconstitute a military that will challenge Russia. Because unless Russia is willing to jump across the Dnieper River and head into central Ukraine and western Ukraine and eliminate the strategic depth that the Ukrainians are being gifted by the Russians, demilitarization is not taking place. It can't take place when tens of billions of dollars of equipment is pouring in and Russia is not able to interdict it. The fact that these 155 millimeter M777 howitzers are operating on the front lines right now shows that there's something wrong with the Russian methodology. And unless they alter that methodology, I think that we're in for a very long summer.
So I would think that generals in Moscow are arguing with Putin. Look, we have to change our methodology. We have to change our approach. Either we cut our losses, or we go for the whole 9 yards and we start bombing the hell out of Western Ukraine. It's still not a member of NATO. They're still going to be shy about matching us in any meaningful way. Let's blow the hell out of them. Now, I don't know if that's really an option, but it probably would come only if there were a full mobilization in Russia. Is that your judgment, Scott? I think I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, Russia did a partial mobilization a little while ago, 60,000 troops, and I believe that provided them the strategic depth to enable them, once the east is taken, to take Odessa, because I think that's still part of the Russian objective. I think when you're the expert at reading the Russian press, but the discussion that's going on right now is about the dysfunction. I think Garland, you mentioned an article by a Russian analyst from the Valdai group, but he's talking about how Ukraine, basically is a dysfunctional nation state, and how it was always difficult to marry the West Ukraine nationalists with the East Ukraine Russians. That was always a difficult proposition. It's now there's no reasonable person can think of a way to keep them married. This is a divorce that is going to happen. The Russian speakers will never be part of Ukraine. Ukraine will never accept Russian speakers, and the Russian speakers will never be able to live in peace with the nationalists. So I think that Russia is seeking to break away the Russian-speaking effort. I think that's the objective of the special military operation. I believe they have sufficient forces to do this. But I also believe that Russia believed that Ukraine would be defeated when this phase of the operation was complete. That it would be a belly up, surrender. We're going to negotiate, whatever. I think that aspect has changed. I think they let Zelensky live too long. They allowed him too much time to build relationships with the West. They allowed the West time to overcome internal domestic political obstacles about providing heavy weaponry, and they've allowed NATO to reconstitute the supply mechanism. Ukraine has strategic depth right now that it did not enjoy when this conflict started, and this changes everything. And if Russia doesn't adapt to that, and it requires more than mobilizing 60,000, it's going to require mobilizing 1.5 million people, because once Russia engages decisively on Ukraine, it's going to have to be willing to engage decisively on Finland, because what's motivating the Finns and the Swedes to join isn't Russia's pacifism; it's Russia's militancy. Russia's actions in Ukraine is what pushed Finland and Sweden over the what had been a political red line. And if Russia doubles down on Ukraine, Finland and Sweden are going to double down on joining NATO. It may take some time to overcome Turkish and Slovakian objections, but eventually the United States will bribe them. That's what we do best. We twist arms, we bribe, we cajole, and they will get a unanimous vote out of NATO. And Russia, it is a strategic defeat for Russia if Finland joins NATO. Once Finland joins NATO, they have Article 5 protection. That changes everything. That means now Russia would have to go. So I believe Russia would have to take out Finland prior to it receiving Article 5 protection, which means general mobilization. So for the Russians, it's a matter of mobilize now or mobilize later, but you're going to have to mobilize no matter what. And the sooner you mobilize, the sooner you can resolve what's becoming a very, very difficult problem in Ukraine. The strategic situation in Ukraine today is far different than it existed when Russia conceived the special military operation.